If you listened to Sylvania Spotlight previously, you may have heard us talking with Chad Stachowicz, who has recently purchased the Haymarket. And of course, that's in the 200 block of Main Street in Sylvania. It's been there a long time. And Chad, welcome back. Good to have you still with us.
I'm excited to be here again.
What did drive your decision to make such a large investment in our community?
I live in Charlotte, and so I think one of the things that is interesting is, and as a whole, while Sylvania is interesting, is what is a large investment, right? And I would offer the statistic that trying to find any commercial building in a downtown business district in Charlotte, North Carolina, around the region that we purchased that shopping center is fundamentally impossible to even be in the range. And so one of the things that makes Sylvania such a interesting place, and Toledo area as a whole, the "You will do better in Toledo" slogan has never rung more true to me in the last couple of years. I think your money goes a lot farther in the area. I think your impact goes a lot further. I think the community is much deeper. I think the way that you make things better for the community and for yourself is kind of putting where your money where your mouth is. So I like to talk a lot, and you know, I just fundamentally, I like to do things. And when I looked at it, I saw a project, and one of the things I'm pretty good at is putting love into care and care into something. And I really thought that piece of property, given the appropriate love and care, was sort of a diamond in the rough.
Well, I'm sure you did your due diligence going into this project. It's a major investment. You're originally from here. Let's talk for a minute about your impressions of the Sylvania business climate. There's obviously a lot of change taking place. We just had the Monroe Street Bridge open after a long period of construction, which is going to help business. There's no question. And the 200 block is also undergoing a revitalization to more or less make downtown and Main Street more consistent from one block to the next. So your timing seems like it's pretty good, because once that project is finished, it's going to take a whole fresh aspect of downtown Sylvania, I think. Were those factors in your timing and your decision to move forward?
Well, they were factors in what made the investment very attractive. I think anytime and try and sell property or move on a business, especially something focused around retail that's going to impact traffic, that probably impacts interest and price. And so as a whole, I mean, I I think it did. I can say that if those weren't happening, I think I still would have been on it and been very interested in winning it. But I think what it really is going to do incredible for, hopefully at the end of our transformation, at the end of downtown's transformation, is you'll see that go from a block that's always played second fiddle to the first,
Mhm.
where I think with our parking and revitalization and, you know, I think we can make that kind of a more of where you start your night in downtown. That block's got inside the five. I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I think it's great for our tenants. I think that they're going to see increased traffic and visibility. I think Sylvania is even putting new signage on that side of town, so it will feel like an entrance to downtown. And the other thing that's interesting, and you mentioned at the Monroe Street Bridge, and I mentioned this in the Toledo Blade interview, but I don't think it made it in there, which was I think that bridge closure has had more impact on downtown Sylvania than downtown Sylvania's work has, because Sylvania is oddly in two separate communities, almost sort of split. If I grew up at Whiteford, Monroe, and I really only drove out to the side of Sylvania that downtown and I live on now. When I wanted to see my grandparents, because a lot of the retail and food and all that you'll find on Monroe Street on the other side of town. Nancy's Italian, the nice restaurants, Franklin Park Mall. So you kind of really have to want to come to downtown Sylvania. It needs to be a thought in a lot of people's mind, unless you kind of live past it. And I think that bridge being out, like, it sounds crazy, but if you're on the side of Kroger's with the bridge out, I think you've got had a much deeper impact on what your day to day life was than if you live on the other side, where the fast food restaurants are. Because I think the people that live over there often, don't traverse out to downtown Sylvania area unless they absolutely have to or they're visiting somebody.
What's the reaction been to your announcement so far?
Well, I think overwhelmingly positive. When a small town like Sylvania, rumors tend to fly. And what I found is, I've heard all sorts of rumors. None of them have been rooted in any truth or anything that I said. Um, but I think overwhelmingly people are excited to see change. And I try to do a pretty good job sort of promoting things on social media and letting the community know what's happening. I think the announcement posted me closing on it, almost 70 or 80,000 unique Toledoans saw that in the metro area. I mean, it had almost 500,000 views. Um, and again, overwhelmingly positive. I think, when you come from again a place like Charlotte, where every single thing you see is being torn down and ripped to shreds, and a new one's being built the next day, you sort of become numb to it. And then you get to Toledo and Sylvania, which is very much the opposite. You have one development like Soma, and it like changes the earth, right? Or when we built a hotel like Wingate, like all of a sudden, like it's the biggest news that's happened in a decade. So, I think the small changes go a lot further. And it's kind of been interesting to me as I've gotten to know more people in Sylvania, because you really find a lot of families that have been here, for generations. And I think this is like, the first 40 years, probably the biggest change that's happened in the central business district since I've been alive. And, for the day to day people that live there every day, I don't, but I feel for their impact on sort of traffic and movability and everything. But from the outside, coming back to a city that I was raised in after almost 10 years and not being there much, and then watching the progress the last 5 years, I think it's monumental. I keep looking at everything they're doing and telling my wife and kids, like, you guys are getting a whole new city right now. Bridges, redoing Monroe Street asphalt, downtown business district. Like, yeah, it's annoying, but this is a 40 years in the making of infrastructure upgrades, and we should all be excited.
Is there anything that I've missed in talking with you that you should want to add?
Oh, well, I mean, the biggest thing I would just add is really thanks to my wife, Kath. She is very supportive in all the crazy ideas that I come up with. Thanks to Alan and Alex Glonick, who were instrumental in getting this done and grew up in Main Street, where the current, well, at least Al did. That's my buddy. He grew up where the current St. Joseph's new campus is, so one of the houses on Main Street. So is very familiar with this area of town. And then my friend Ed Umansky and his wife Amy for being supportive. They're a CTO at Cloverhound. So, as a whole, I'm confident that without some partners, this probably was a bigger bite than I would have taken. And so I'm really excited to have everyone's support. I'm really excited every time I come up with a crazy idea. My wife's like, "You should just do it." So yeah, that's what I would say.
What about the tenants that are there? I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, are they indicating that they want to stay, and is that going to be possible?
Generally, pretty much everyone wants to stay, from what I can tell. I've said in many forums that if people want to stay, we'll figure out a way to make it work. Um, there is plenty plenty of things out there that I do think the city should consider. One of the things that I've spoken about pretty publicly is, I think it is a pretty big investment in the community. Um, what we're doing. And I think some of the things that the city should consider again would be maybe tax abatements for myself or other businesses who are going to put serious investments in Sylvania and downtown. Those immediately affect tenants and the rents that they pay. I will say the previous owner. Um, I think the previous owner was one of the nicest men I've ever seen, as far as how he treated tenants, and so I'm trying to take that forward. But yeah, I mean, I've already re-signed or at least gotten one lease worked out. And as far as I know, everyone that I've spoken to is comfortable with what we're doing. What I've told them very clearly is I'm going to work through sort of the end of this year, take a true assessment of like what we have to do to get this plaza back up to a place where like, if there's a leak in a roof, for example, it's hard for somebody to want to come into your restaurant,
Mhm.
and it costs money to fix the leak. And so, yeah, everything is sort of situated around the economics of it. But right now, the group and I are committed to getting everything fixed up, and then figuring out how and if that affects tenants. But the short answer is, will we be kicking anyone out? The answer is no.
Chad Stachowicz, we wish you all the best and really appreciate the time you've spent with us explaining your project and how it's going to unfold. We'll look forward to keeping track of the progress. Please stay in touch and keep us posted on that.
All right. Thanks so much, Brian, for having me.
You're welcome. I'm Brian Trauring, and you're listening to Sylvania Spotlight on WSYL.
The sound of Sylvania 24/7 on WSYL.